All right, so this is a quick rundown on how the week went, testing the adventure mechanic with focus on Edgewall Innkeeper. The Mythic Championship VII is going on now. The Teamer deck had one or two players playing Teamer, some in Wilderness Reclamation. I think there was one player playing the adventure version, which I was pretty impressed with. The Green-Black, not many players were on the devoted Green-Black adventure. A lot of them were Green-Black Cat or Green-Black Food or Green-Black kind of mid-range. They weren't quite as committed to the adventure mechanic as I was to begin with. Just kind of reflecting on the deck itself, it was playing cards like Foulmire Knight, Order of Midnight, which I never cast the Order of Midnight once, and Murder Strider. We went, I think it was 3-3 with the deck. This is pretty close to what the final list was. We did cut a Great Hinge and an Order of Midnight, and we had two Casualties of War in the main. And the deck overall was decent. I think my issues with it were a lot of your lower end of your creature curve, your Paradise Druids, Foulmire Knights, Order of Midnights, they just weren't very impressive unless you had an Edgewall Innkeeper in play already and you were getting extra value. It was really just a questing beast deck. Great Hinge was pretty impressive. I flooded out a pretty fair amount. I would say a lot of the night went down to variance. If you rewatch the videos on Twitch at Busted Sleeves, you'll see there was a lot of mulligan to 5s. There were a lot of 1-land hands. There were a lot of 2-land hands that never drew a third. And then there were a lot of flood outs. I had at least 3 times where I had a 4-spell to 8-land or 4-spell to 10-land ratio in that range. There was multiple times where it was 8 or more lands to 3 to 4 spells. So I think some of it came down to variance. But I also just feel like there's really linearly broken things in the format. So if I'm going to be playing any black deck right now, I have to have a really good reason not to play the cat combo. So this list to me, the shell felt close, but the things that were good in this deck also exist in the green-black mid-range cat decks. And I think you could just shift that direction and not really run the pure adventure mechanic. That being said, the other list we played was earlier this week on Monday, which is still on the videos on demand, is the Teamer Adventure deck. And this deck was incredibly impressive to me. I actually lost one match against it last night with Green-Black. Mind you, that opponent had 3 Lucky Clovers in the first 3 turns in the first 4 turns in game 1, and had 2 by turn 5 in game 2 and a 3rd by turn 7. So they just kind of ran us over with value, but the deck is just really impressive. I went 4-1 with this myself on Monday, and I think the deck is really good. And it's one that I want to keep testing. I'm not sure if it's something I want to take to OKC or take to Grand Prix Portland, because there is more negates floating around with blue-green resurgence, and that kind of makes your adventure cards a little bit worse because if they counter the spell side with a negate, you kind of get punished. So you have to be really selective. That being said, moving forward, there's a couple different things I'm interested in looking at testing for next week as I prepare for the tournaments. One of the baseline decks, I played this deck a couple weeks ago, a version of it, is the cat food deck, but it's Jund. And so you have Trail of Crumbs and Midnight Reaper and Corvold as just value engines of card generation. You have Mayhem Devil, Cauldron Familiar, as far as just kind of the inevitability to drain out. And then just Corvold the Fakehurst King. I think it alone makes it worth splashing the red in these green-black decks. And then Mayhem Devil also gives you really combo-ish hands. So I think this deck is incredibly close. This is the Brian Braun-Duin's BBDs from the Mythic Championship VII. He went off 1 turn, and it was just an impressive game where the opponent was at 19, and he killed them because he had a non-summoning sick Corvold just sitting there at 5. And was able to go from Corvold being to 5 to generating cat damage and sacking enough things to just win the game. I think he had 13 or 14 cards in his hand at the end of the turn. It was just an insane turn. So this is a deck I'm considering testing more. Whether or not Cat and Oven will be my case study for next week or not, I'm not sure. I feel confident enough that this is the version of the deck I like better, that I might not warrant a case study per se. I might just do a 3rd stream next week with just this deck straight up, because I don't think I would want to run just straight green-black. I think I want to play the Corvold and the Mayhem Devil. What I have been thinking about streaming next week, and I'm interested to hear what people's takes are, is whether or not I want to play a mana-heavy deck. So really mana-based, whether it's Wilderness Reclamation or Ramp, whether it's Bant or Teamer or 4-color, and we're just looking to generate large X spells like Explosion and Finale of Devastation. Andre Maguchi was playing Simic Ramp, and this looks pretty great to me. If landfalls are the way that you are planning on winning the games anyway, matches up really well. This deck matches up really well against the slower, grindy cat decks. It's a little bit worse against like red-black, the more aggressive ones, and it's pretty decent against fires. I mean, you have some variants that can get in the way, but it's overall not too bad. We have Cavalier of Thorns, Hydroid Krasis, Agent of Treachery, just to have these really strong plays. And then we have payoffs like Enraiser of the Forerunner and Finale of Devastation, just to make massive amounts of damage and kind of combo kill opponents if they're not a permission-based deck. So what I'm looking at next week doing is testing a version of this ramp deck and maybe Wilderness Reclamation. And the test next week won't be about a specific card. It'll be about a card type, which is just lands, mana, like what mana-based style is best and how does it match up in the format. So we'll compare this ramp deck that tries to tap out and do a lot of stuff on its turn to the Wilderness Reclamation list that I was actually thinking, brainstorming a lot about earlier this week, that players like Kinji at Mythic Championship are playing, and they position really well. So yeah, this is kind of what I'm looking at doing it next week. Interested to get your feedback in the comments below. As always, make sure you give me a follow on Twitter and on Twitch to get the latest updates. And look forward to jumping back in the stream starting on Monday. And you'll see on this channel on Sunday a preview for what next week's stress test looks like. But thanks for following along.